How's Grant here, and some of the recent smartphone news is that Vivo has just released the X90 Pro Plus, which is the first phone with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset, which is definitely interesting. But I think in terms of camera, I think it's more interesting that they continue to do their own custom imaging chipset in their X series phones. So this year they're branding it the V2 chipset, and so all this means is that Vivo controls the entire camera stack from the time you take the photo or video to their own custom image processing all the way to the time that you see it. So it's worked well in previous X series phones, so we're going to see how it works here in the X90 Pro Plus. And the other thing that Vivo is doing is that they're following the trend of putting in larger camera sensors, a full 1-inch sensor that the Sony Pro I did and the Xiaomi 12S Ultra did. And so it's good to see that the camera tech is continuing to progress. And we'll see how that compares against Google's Samsung GN1 sensor, which is pretty large, not quite a full 1-inch sensor, but I believe it's 1/1.3-inch sensor, so it's pretty good. Definitely takes very good photos and videos. And so we'll see how it stacks up against that 1-inch sensor on the X90 Pro Plus. So all that was just a lot of camera nerd speak, and what I really want to show you was how these front-facing cameras produce 60 frames per second video outdoors. And so let's go ahead and see how it looks indoors. All right, here we go, 60 frames per second video indoors. Too bad the front-facing camera on the Vivo tops out at 1080p and doesn't shoot in 4K. And I just found the voice enhancement feature on the Vivo, and so it only appears when you actually start recording. You have an option to tap and turn on that voice enhancement, so it's on right now. The Pixel doesn't have speech enhancement at 60 frames per second, so check out the audio differences here. I'll be sure to use the Vivo voice enhancement on my outdoors footage in low light because I forgot, or I didn't actually see it with my previously recorded footage outdoors during the day. But anyway, let's get back outdoors. So we're back outside with the rear cameras because I want to show you this cinematic video and what it looks like here in this setting. So you should be seeing this artificial background blur. And what's nice is on the Vivo, you can actually adjust the amount of blur, while on the Pixel, you cannot. And so this limits you to 1080p while shooting in this mode. So I just want to show you what this looks like here in an outdoor setting. Now let's go ahead and check out what it looks like indoors. All right, here we are at cinematic video indoors from the rear-facing cameras. Let me know how this compares to the footage you just saw outdoors. But for the rest of the video, I'm going to show you a bunch of photos and videos in both good and low light conditions, so you can decide for yourself which of these two camera systems might be best for your smartphone camera needs. So let's go ahead and take a look at all the photos and videos, and let me know what you think.
Sonic.
So here's a rear video test of the Vivo X90 Pro Plus and Pixel 7 Pro. As you can see, they both are actively recording from the rear facing cameras. And this is the ultra wide angle camera at 4K 30 frames per second on each. And so I'm just going to pan around here to give you a feel for how these compare side by side in this particular setting. Lots of greens and blues, some nice clouds in the sky, so this should be pretty scenic. Good test here. And you can actually switch between the cameras while recording, just not at 4K 60. On the Vivo, it's more of a pinch to zoom or using the zoom slider. Unfortunately, no one tap to zoom here, but I'll actually move in here, and this is at 0.8. So if we move in a couple clicks, you'll start to see it click in on the main camera. So on the next one right there, you saw it clear up. So that's on the main camera right now on the Vivo. And then on the Pixel, one tap to get to the main camera there. So that's how these main cameras compare. I'll just pan around so you can see what that looks like here side by side in this particular setting. All right, so we're back with the main camera. This time I have Dolby Vision on the Vivo and HDR video turned on the Pixel. So you can see what that looks like here on the main camera. You should be seeing some differences compared to the footage with it off. So I'm just gonna pan around here to give you a feel for what that looks like here side by side with those settings on. And then I'm gonna come back and we'll test out the zoom and stabilization. Okay, so this is with Dolby Vision and HDR video turned off again. I had to do that because it affects the zoom range on the Vivo. So I'm gonna pan over here to the right and we'll test zoom on that cell tower. So with the Pixel, we have that 5x telephoto zoom. You saw it clear up right there. And on the Vivo, we have a 2x telephoto. So you'll see it click in here in a bit. Right there, so you saw it clear up. So that's the 2x telephoto. And I can pinch into the 3.5x telephoto as well. So a couple more taps here, you'll see it click in. Right there, you saw it clear up. So that's the other telephoto 3.5x zoom. And then this can go all the way up to a max 10x digital zoom there on the Vivo. And we'll go to a 10x equivalent here on the Pixel. You can just compare what that looks like here. Back that out just a bit to 10x. And there we go. So that's 10x digital on each. And the Pixel, of course, can go all the way to a max 20x digital. So you can see what that looks like here, and looking pretty steady on each as well. So we'll back both of these out. And then we'll go ahead and test the autofocus here on the post. So let's get that back on the Pixel, on the Vivo, and let's go with the Vivo first. Autofocus and away. So focus is pretty quick on the Vivo, considering the large sensor here. And one more time. And then with the Pixel, focused up and away. A little bit slower on the Pixel, but still pretty nice shallow depth of field or background blur with those large sensors. And we'll test stabilization by walking down the stairs here. So you can see what that looks like here side by side in 4K. And I'll just jog to try to stress out the stabilization. You can see what that looks like. So there you go, outdoor video test on the Vivo X90 Pro Plus and Pixel 7 Pro. So here's a quick test of the cinematic video on the rear cameras. They're both limited to 1080p in this mode. And so I'm just starting out outdoors so you can see what this looks like here. You should see some artificial background blur on both of these cameras right now. And this is some pretty good even light, so it shouldn't be stressing it out. It should be looking pretty clear. And so as I pan around, you'll see what this looks like here with some light directly shining into the camera. As I pan all the way around with the light shining directly on me and what that looks like. And also let me know how the effect is holding up with all this motion. And I'll also start walking so we can test what it looks like and if it keeps up when I'm walking here, and also what the stabilization looks like. So let me know what you think about the rear camera cinematic mode here on both phones. All right, so here's a quick test of the advanced stabilization modes on these cameras. So I'm just gonna start jogging to stress it out, and we'll see how level it keeps the video. So there you go, that's just a quick test of the advanced stabilization feature on both of these video cameras. Alright, so this will be a front-facing camera test of the Vivo X90 Pro Plus and Pixel 7 Pro. As you can see, they both are actively recording from the front-facing cameras. And this is at their max resolutions, which is 1080p 30 frames per second on the Vivo. It's a shame that it can only do 1080p and not 4K on a phone at this price point. And then you've got the Pixel, which can do 4K 60. This is at 4K 30 frames per second though. And so what you'll notice is that there's more of a crop on the Vivo when you have stabilization turned on here. Stabilization is on the Pixel all the time, or actually it's just turned on right now, and it's not as heavy of a crop. So more of a crop for that electron zoom on the Vivo than on the Pixel. So just something to take note of. And I'm starting out in a usual testing spot here. It's some pretty even light, so you can see what these cameras can do without too much harsh light on me. But if I pan around, you'll see the sun directly behind me right now and what that does to the picture quality. And so it looks like the Pixel's handling that exposure a little bit better there than the Vivo, and we'll turn all the way around so the sun is now directly in front of me. You can see how that changes the picture quality as well. And we'll just start walking so you can test that stabilization and see what that looks like side by side, if the Vivo is any steadier because it has a heavier electronic crop or not. But let me know what you think about the front-facing cameras here on the Vivo X90 Pro Plus and Pixel 7 Pro. Now, although the Vivo can't do 4K video from the front-facing camera, it can do this cinematic video. So you see this artificial background blur. The Pixel only has it on the rear, not on the front-facing camera. I also have stabilization off on the Vivo, so you can see the wider field of view matches up pretty well with the Pixel, even though the Pixel has stabilization turned on right now. And the Pixel is at equivalent 1080p 30 frames per second because that's what you're limited to on the Vivo. And so I just want to do that quick comparison here and show you what it can do. I'll pan around so you can see how this background blur effect holds up with some motion and what it does with some stabilization. So as I walk, what does it look like given that stabilization is off? It doesn't look horrible with stabilization off, but it is more stable obviously with that tighter crop and electronic stabilization on. So let me know what you think about this cinematic video here on the Vivo X90 Pro Plus. So here's a quick test at 60 frames per second. Again, still 1080p on the Vivo and 4K on the Pixel. And so there's no stabilization at 60 frames on the Vivo, but there is on the Pixel. So I'm just going to pan around so you can see what it looks like with some motion and get some of that 60 frames per second effect in there. And you can also see what it does to the picture quality as well in the front-facing cameras. And then as we start walking, you can see what I mean by that stabilization. So it should be more stable on the Pixel than what you're seeing on the Vivo right now. But let me know what you think about this 60 frames per second footage from the front-facing cameras. Everyone, here's a low-light video test of the rear cameras on the Vivo X90 Pro Plus and Pixel 7 Pro. This is the ultra-wide-angle camera to start out on each at 4K 30 frames per second. And so I have speech enhancement on the Pixel and voice enhancement on the Vivo. And so pay attention to the audio there and how they compare. And so I'll move into the main lens now. On the Vivo, it's a pinch to zoom or the zoom slider. So unfortunately, no one tap to zoom. So let's try to move it in, and you saw it snap in there. So there you go. You see the main lens. It's much brighter now because it's letting in more light with that main lens. And a one tap on the Pixel. So that cleared up. The ultra-wide-angle camera is pretty noisy, but this looks a lot better on the main camera on the Pixel. So I'll just pan around here with the main camera side by side so you can see what this looks like here in this particular setting and how they both handle that really bright street light up there. And let's go ahead and pan around this way and we'll walk test the stabilization as well. So you can see how that compares side by side here, as well as being able to test these cameras in a much darker area. So obviously that was a pretty well lit area, a lot of light there, so you can see how they perform in some fairly good light at night. And so as you walk this way, it's gonna get a lot darker. So we'll see how they handle a lot less light here. And you're probably seeing some micro jitters from the stabilization with the low light, which is pretty normal. As around the corner, it's pretty dark, but both these cameras are definitely brightening up the scene much more than what I'm seeing with my own eyes here. So much so that you're probably seeing a bit of noise. And so as you pan up into the night sky, it is some kind of air pollution right now. It's not very clean air here in California right now. So it is kind of cloudy, if you want to call it that. So it's going to be grayish skies right now. So that's a pretty accurate representation from what I'm seeing the viewfinder, but definitely some noise on each. As you pan around this way, we'll go to a mixed lighting situation where it's darker down this alleyway, but you have some light coming off the buildings there. And so you can see what this looks like here in this particular light setting. So there you go, 4K video test in low light on the Vivo X90 Pro Plus and Pixel 7 Pro. So here's a low light video test from the front facing cameras of the Vivo X90 Pro Plus and Pixel 7 Pro. This is being shot at their max resolutions, which is 1080p on the Vivo and 4K on the Pixel. This is being shot at 30 frames per second, even though they both can do 60 frames, because 30 frames is not as dark in low light. And also the Vivo does not stabilize at 60 frames per second. Now, speech enhancement is on the Pixel and voice enhancement is on the Vivo, so we can test out the background noise cancellation on these microphones here. And so I'm starting at my usual testing spot in some pretty well lit area, so you can see how these cameras perform in some pretty good lighting here at night. Let's go ahead and start walking so we can test stabilization, as well as see how these cameras perform as we move into a bit of a darker area here. So how they perform with less light. And we can test out these voice background cancellation features with the water fountain that is now to my right. So we can test if they cancel out that background noise against the sound of my voice. And we can pan around this way, you can see how they do with these really bright street lights behind me, as you can see there. And overall, not too bad. If anything, maybe the Pixel flaring out a little bit more than the Vivo. And so if we move back here to this darker area, you can see side by side how each of these look with a lot less light. They're probably trying to brighten up the scene, maybe more so on the Pixel. And as a result, a bit more noise, and again, a little more grain on the Pixel because of that. But that's going to wrap up this camera comparison between the Vivo X90 Pro Plus and the Pixel 7 Pro. Let me know what you thought and which ones you personally preferred and your thoughts on each. And so for me, I think if you just like pretty much point and shoot, you want really good autofocus at pretty much any focal length, close or far, Pixel is probably going to be your best bet. It's really meant for that quick shooting. Let the image processing handle everything, give you the best possible photo. If you want more flexibility with the Pro modes, all the different filters, the different camera modes, you can get a lot more creativity with the Vivo and really take advantage of that large 1-inch main sensor. I think you really like the Vivo because of that. But the one thing that can't be denied, I think, is that low light performance hands down goes to the Vivo. It was really good on the X70 Pro Plus that I tested before, and the X90 Pro Plus still really good low light performance even without night mode because of that large sensor. So that's what I would go with, and those are my quick thoughts on each of these camera systems and my recommendation based on how you would use these and what type of photographer you are or how you use your smartphone cameras. But drop me a comment in the comment section below and let me know what you think, and we'll continue our conversation down there. And as always, thanks for watching.